regular meeting of the Waterworks and Lighting Commission will come to order for May 14, 2014. Welcome to the meeting of the Waterworks and Lighting Commission. The meeting is for the commissioners to conduct the business of the utility. It is not a public hearing. The commission will not be discussing anything that has not been properly noticed and placed on the agenda. The commissioners may, but do not have to, recognize persons who wish to speak on items that are on the agenda. As chair, it is my duty to ensure that this meeting is run in accordance with the state open meetings law and Robert's Rules of Order. Inappropriate conduct or disruptions will not be tolerated. Anyone engaging in inappropriate conduct or causing a disruption will be asked and then directed to leave. I trust that everyone present will respect these rules in order that the commissioners can efficiently conduct the business of the utility. Approval, additions, or corrections to the minutes of the following meetings, the regular commission meeting held April 9th.
Move for approval.
I'll second.
The motion's been made and seconded by John and Tom. All those, or any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We have a couple of action items today. One is to discuss the fireworks donation request.
Yes, we received our normal annual letter from the Teen Fireworks Committee. This is something Water and Light has sponsored and helped support at least for 4 years and probably 5, I think. I know there was a letter explaining that within the training packets, and we've typically given the same amount, and that's been $500. I think it's a worthwhile cause. It brings a lot of folks downtown, and is usually a real good event. So with that, I'll entertain any questions or comments that commissioners have.
I'll make a motion that we give $500 to the Teen Fireworks Committee.
I'll second that one.
There's been a motion made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
John.
Then, yes, Rick.
Oh, I just want to relay that Carol Davis, who coordinates the Teen Fireworks Committee, their appreciation and thanks for all the past support and your current support for the fireworks. It's great to see that group of kids out in the community and doing that. So I want to pass along those thank yous.
Thank you, Rick. Okay, for the audit, I'll hand this over to Jeff.
Thank you. With us today is John Troutman. He's a shareholder with Schenck, the accounting firm that we've used for the last 4 years. I think, John, you've been on the audit all 4 years? Correct. This is the second year I've got to work with John. A really good working relationship with Schenck, really good firm to work with. John's just here to do a high-level overview of the financial statements, let you know where things are, and answer any questions the commission may have. So at this point, I'll turn it over to John.
Very good. Further that I stood, or
Either way, everybody's comfortable.
basically the audit, again, pleasure to be in front of you again this year, going through the 2013 audit. The audit report itself consists of 2 documents. There's a bound document, and then inside the cover, sometimes it's in the front, sometimes it's in the back, is a small stapled document. I'll go through briefly the annual financial report, which is the bound document, go through just some highlights of the opinion letter. I want to focus on that management communication letter, which gets a little bit more in-depth in the communication and some of the summary financial information. So you turn to your bound book, just past the table of contents is the opinion letter. That is the really the letter that ended the audit, that ended in independent auditor's report, and where we issued opinion on your financial statements. So I just want to go through the bottom of that page, the last paragraph with the bullet opinion. In our opinion, the financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects the financial position of Wisconsin Rapids Waterworks and Light Commission as of December 31, 2013, and the results of its operations and cash flows thereof for the year ended in accordance with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States of America. So, What that means is you got a clean opinion, you got an unmodified opinion. That is what you strive for when you have an independent outside auditor. So congratulations on that. That means your financial statements and your records are materially correct, and we were able to issue an opinion on that. So great job there. You turn past the rest of that opinion letter and go towards the financial statements. The first financial statement is the combined statement of net position, otherwise previously known as the balance sheet. This really goes through the assets and the liabilities and the net position of the commission, both the electric utility and the water utility. As you can see, the electric utility has total current assets of $6,250,833. Compare that with non-current assets in the electric utility, which of course is your restricted cash, your restricted investments, and also your capital assets and utility plant. Total non-current assets, $42,941,533. So total assets for the electric utility, $49,192,000. You have a separate category here. The last few years, you've noticed this. It's very small. I won't spend a lot of time on it. The electric utility deferred outflows of resources. In the past, those were categorized as, you'll see deferred outflows and deferred inflows when we get down to liabilities. And those used to be called assets and liabilities. They simply pulled those out. And you may see some one year and not the other. It depends on what you're doing and depends if you have that in the current year. You have $2,808 in deferred outflows related to the preliminary survey and investigation. Current liabilities on the next page, $4,083,579. Your non-current liabilities, of course, are your long-term debt, $7,848,000. And total liability, $11,932,000. So then you come up with a total net position. Obviously, net position for 2013, electric utility, $37,262,000. Now of that amount, $22,394,000 is tied up in your net investment in capital assets. So while $37 million, large number, but $22 million of that is tied up in all of your utility plant for electric utility. You have a restriction of debt retirement, which again, you can't use for any purpose other than debt retirement, $657,890. So you're left with the unrestricted net position at the end of the year, $14,210,253. So that rounds out the electric utility. I'll briefly go through the water utility. Total assets in the water utility, $32 million. $3 million of that is current assets. $28 million of that is non-current assets. You have $110,000 in deferred outflows of resources, again related to this similar preliminary survey and investigation monies. You have total liabilities of $2,013,000. $1.8 million is approximately the current liabilities. And then you have non-current liabilities of $169,000. So the net position of the water utility ended the year $30,156,000. Of the $30 million, $28 million is tied up and invested in your assets. So you can see you only have about $2 million in unrestricted net position for the water utility. That's really a snapshot of where you ended the year on December 31, 2013. I'm going to flip now to the management letter, because that really goes through the operations of how you got to those numbers. So if we go back, go ahead.
Question?
Yes.
Accrued vacation leave,
Yes.
$369,000. Do you find that to be normal?
It is typical to have accrued vacation, correct. As far as a normal
At
number.
this level, in terms of, all right,
It depends, accrued vacation, it depends on the policies on whether or not you accrue vacation. If you accrue vacation on January 1 and you have to use it all by December 31, your financial statement, again, which is a snapshot as of a single day, December 31, wouldn't show any accrued vacation because there's nothing carried over. If you have an anniversary date, of course, you have a whole lot of carryover. So it varies by financial statement. It depends on what the parameters are. But that is not atypical. We see numbers even higher than that in some cases, depending on when anniversary dates fall.
all right.
Any other questions on that position? I want to quick go to the management letter, the management communication letter, which is that stapled, smaller document. That brings in the, not only the communication letter, but also some operations, which we'll talk about, and some rate of return. You turn past the table of contents of that document. Again, this brings in, this is a 3-4 page letter, which is just that, a communication letter. If you're paging through the book, it's not in the bound document, it's actually in a stapled separate document.
It should be in the back of the.
Through the back.
Statement.
There you go. So much like the opinion letter brings in a lot of our responsibilities, it goes through our responsibilities of what we do during an audit. I'm not going to read all that to you. A lot of that is similar language that is in every year. But on the top of page 2, it really starts going through the internal control. And an audit, again, we issue an opinion on your financial statements. That's what an audit is. But we do not issue an opinion on your internal control. That is not part of any audit. But during the last, I'd say, decade, the standards have changed and really focused in and narrowed in on what we have to do for internal controls, and really increased our role as far as considering your internal control. And I'm happy to report that we did not identify any deficiencies in internal control over financial reporting that we consider to be material weakness. So that's excellent. That's what you strive for in an internal control. So great job there. The bottom of page 2 really points out just some estimates that are contained in your financial statements. We simply point them out as a communication to you. Those are normal and customary financial statements. The 2 are depreciable lives of capital assets. Of course, that is based on an estimate. And then other post-employment benefits is based on an actual report, which brings in assumptions and factors and is estimated as well. So we just provide that as a service to bring some information and some relevancy to the financial statements. Page 3 concludes that communication letter, which, again, page 3 is kind of a bunch of bullet points there, a bunch of headings. And I always like to communicate this. This is really the page where if there's any kind of issues, you're going to see it on this. As a commission, you just want to look at one page and say, well, how did our audit go? This is really it. And any kind of issues we had, any kind of things we want to point out is going to be right here in relationship to the opinion and the audit. So great job. Nothing out of the ordinary. We certainly appreciate the books that we get is very high quality, very few entries, if any, that we make. So excellent job there. The next section goes through summary financial information. Again, where we concluded in the actual book, the actual financial statements, was the net position. Now we're going to talk a little bit about the rate of return. So what we're really doing here is we're reporting your operations and then how those operations really translate to a rate of return for the commission. So you have both electric and water, and you have 2 years. So it's a nice, kind of confusing, kind of a busy schedule here, but what it's really doing is comparing from year to year in both entities, in both utilities. So you can see the electric is the left part of that table. You have an average rate base. You have utility plant and service, 45 million. Inventory is 904,000. You take out the reserve for depreciation of 17 million and the regulatory liability of $1 million, and you get an average rate base for 2013 in electric utility of 27,491,000. Operating income per audit, $1 million, just over $1 million. Add in depreciation on contributed plant, take out the tax equivalent, and you get operating income per PSC. So there you have a reconciliation of your financial statement, operating income, and your regulatory Public Service Commission operating income. That calculates for 2013 to a rate of return of 1.09%. Your authorized rate of return is 7%, obviously less than your authorized rate of return, which is why you're actually looking and filing a rate case requesting a 5.96 increase in rates to get back up to that rate of return. Because again, you at some point in time when you authorize that 7%, your rates were built to get 7% rate of return. As time goes on, that number changes. Most likely more than that goes down, and then you have to look at the rates again. If you look at the water on the right side, 22,377,000 average rate base. Operating income per PSC, $1,088,000. Your rate of return is 4.87. So your authorized rate of return in the water utility is 6%. So not bad. A little bit lower than obviously your rates were built historically, but still not bad. But again, watch that number, monitor that number, watch for trends going down. That's what you're looking for. Any questions on the rate of return? Page 5 kind of switches gear and concludes this management communication letter. And really what this is the other comments and observations section. This is really where we just throw in some observations in the audit, not necessarily findings or anything negative. It's simply, here's things that maybe you could do better, or here's things we see for efficiency purposes or something like that related to that. Number 1, credit card supporting documentation. This is a pretty picky, for lack of a better term, comment, but I like to throw it in there because credit cards are becoming more and more used. They're convenient. Sometimes they're required now. So we see a trend to use them more and more. So anytime we see some issues, anytime we see some areas of improvement, we're going to point that out to you. But it's certainly not a huge deal here. Your credit card disbursement procedure requires employees to keep supporting documentation, much like it should, for each purchase. This is done to prevent employee from making unauthorized or unapproved purchases, of course. During the disbursement test during the audit, we did select 1 month of credit card expenses. That's a typical procedure we do. We follow up with additional if we need to. And we did find that two charges did not have documentation. And again, probably existed, it probably just wasn't filed, something like that. Happens all the time, we see it. However, we point out that the internal control there has to be where those receipts are kept on file before it's paid. And that can become a problem if it's more and more or large disbursements. So watch that.
Order of magnitude of those?
One of them was actually, I off the top of my head I can't remember. One of them was actually sizable. I think it was like $400 or $500 if I'm mistaken.
I believe one was small, it was like
One was very small,
$20,
correct.
one was airfare.
One was airfare, correct. And those kind of things, restaurant receipts, they're pretty easy to lose. I've lost a few. I mean, it happens. Airfare, we don't typically see that one, which is why it's in here. I really, you like to see that. Usually you can generate those after the fact if you need to. So again, you need to make sure those are in that file because those are really documenting what that's for and so forth. So, any other questions on that one?
I had another question that actually was part of a later report, but the question is, of those things that are purchased under the credit card, are they recategorized back into the account that they should be, or are they in a group of just credit card charges?
The expenses themselves
Right.
get credited to the appropriate expense account.
Okay.
So if I'm traveling versus buying supplies, those are going to 2 separate general ledger
So the
accounts.
supplies for water would be accredited there,
Right.
redistributed.
Exactly.
All right.
Number 2, internal control over journal entries. The finance director is the one primarily responsible for preparing and posting journal entries. And the journal entries are not really approved officially or approved or reviewed by anyone in particular. So again, getting to a little bit more of the internal control, transitioning over the last few years, there's been some settling in as far as some procedures. You have fixed this now, I believe. You're having other employees. You finally had a position now where you can have other employees generating most of these journal entries, and then your finance director can approve them. So again, this is simply pointing that out. You already corrected it, but there's a discussion there that you can read and know why that's important. So if there's any questions on that, why that's being done that way, you can always go back to this document. So any questions on that? Again, you've already corrected it, so I don't want to spend a lot of time on it. But it's certainly any kind of extra review you can do with any of this is a good idea as you build in and advance your finance departments. The rest of that letter is simply your representation letter, which concludes the audit. There'll be a letter from you back to me saying you've made everything available. I can certainly go through any other financial statement or any other issue you want to talk about. Open it up.
On the page 3 where you discuss management consultations, do you do any consulting
We do.
for this organization?
Let me get to where you are here. Apologize.
Page 3 in the middle of the management consultations.
We did use Shank with our most recent rate case we filed. about the extent of consulting that we use with Shank.
Yeah, I mean, we do all sorts of consulting, but for your organization, correct, we filed the rate case for you. We insisted at the rate case.
Okay, nothing else.
Nothing else. Any questions?
Everybody good with the audit? Okay, thanks, John. And I think we do have to approve this to commissioners. Each year we approve the audited financial statements. So.
I would move for approval.
I'll second that. Okay. Then a motion made and seconded to approve the audit. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
I just had one discussion point. What are the specifics of the correction as it relates to the approval and entry of the journals? What are the specifics?
So the specifics are essentially most of the journal entries are prepared by staff and then entered and posted by me, as opposed to doing the creation, entering and posting by myself. So it's just more of a training issue and getting them up to speed and understanding the processes.
Before we had, this has been, since Shank's been doing our audit, before that Baker Tilly, this has always been written up in internal controls because we just didn't have enough staffing in order to have enough people look at the entries. At this point in time, I think now that Jeff has got another accountant on board and getting her up to speed, she's able to do the entries, he reviews them, and then that satisfies the remark.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Focus on energy, is there any,
Well, did you have anything there or not? No.
I did not,
No, and we did get the annual report from Focus, or did we review that last month? I'm trying to remember if we didn't. Yeah, we'll bring that to the next meeting. And I don't remember the numbers off the top of my head, but our customers did very well with Focus compared to the amount the utility paid in and what Focus paid out in rebates. It was like double or triple, I think, what we actually paid into Focus versus what our customers received in rebates. We'll have those numbers for you at the next commission meeting.
Great Lakes Utility?
Great Lakes did not meet last month. We are meeting next week in Rapids. I do have a little bit of an aside. Great Lakes Utilities, because we invested in this wind farm in Minnesota, and we're still getting renewable credits from some of our longer-term power supply contracts, we essentially have excess renewable credits available. So we responded to We Energies RFP requesting 20,000 renewable energy credits for 5 years, starting January of 2015. And GLUE was successful in getting that RFP. So GLUE will actually be supplying We Energies with 20,000 renewable energy credits for the next 5 years, starting January of 2015. So just a little bit of plus up for GLUE since they had the extra credit, so it made sense.
So is there a financial advantage that will accrue?
Correct. I mean, I think it starts out at $2 a rec and then goes up to over 3 or 4 over the 5-year span. So that would all go to GLUE rate stabilization fund, basically. So yes, there's economic benefit to GLUE and its members for doing it, yes.
And $2 a rec.
$2 a rec, a megawatt hour. However you want to look at it.
What's renewable energy credit?
Credit, yeah.
But the megawatt hour makes it logical to me.
So when you're saying, what are we selling these credits to We Energies? Is that what?
Correct. GLUE, Great Lakes Utilities will be selling them on an annual basis to We Energies. That's all I had for GLUE.
Okay. Safety Committee?
Any comments on how well the training went for the chemical training?
It went very well. Everybody else went to it, whatever, they got all the information, they felt very comfortable with the presentation, what was offered, and so forth. They actually took them on a tour afterwards and showed them exactly where things are and what they are. So we had a very good understanding of the hazards and the awareness, how to handle it.
Do you do any kind of testing related to those trainings?
No, it is basically informational and stuff. We didn't have no hands-on per se or anything that's kind of hazardous. You just don't want to be having somebody given a chemical to play with, whatever, but it was good training.
Most of the folks up in the filter plant that are dealing with it on a day-to-day basis were aware of it anyway, but just, we did this for all the office staff and other folks too, correct?
In the water department,
And the water.
we deal with it.
Would there be any reason to do this on a regular basis?
If it was somebody new, maybe
Okay.
sit them down and talk to them and
Okay.
bring them up to speed on it, but it wouldn't hurt, like I say, if we do something annually or something like that, just a refresher if something comes up, but
Okay,
the system as a whole now is very low maintenance, so
okay. Any questions for Chris? Okay. Line superintendent report.
It's an LBU.
Load brake unit, sectionizing.
What was that? What was it?
A load brake unit.
What it means is when you got a switch that comes off, you got an extra arc flash suppressor there, so if you're breaking the load, instead of having this big arc that's created, it gets absorbed in that piece of equipment.
And when it's bad, what does that mean?
It means it went to ground and,
Okay.
you know, caused a problem.
It's a bad combination.
Well, yeah, go ahead, Paul.
Basically, it's an LBU again. It's similar to an LBU, only it has an arrestor on it. We use it, a lightning arrestor is also attached, and generally they're used for isolating transformers, protecting transformers from any lightning strokes.
Okay.
So
So that's a physical
usually when they
account.
fail, what happens is, we've been trying to correct that over the years by using a rubber or polymer type of combination now, where the old porcelains have a tendency to track, and then especially in moisture, if they have any cracks or anything in them, with the freezing and not, they'll open up and then just fall apart, and generally that's what happens when we come across these bad LBUs or combinations. The porcelain has failed on them.
I never heard of that term, the combinations.
Well, what it is, it's got the switch and the arrestor built
And the
together,
arrestor.
so we
Oh.
call it a combination, because there's
Okay.
two parts that make up the unit.
Water department report.
Glad Springs here? Are you glad Spring is here?
oh yeah.
I gave Dale a compliment. The Bell Island folks were pleased with the courtesy with which they were treated, and they wanted to make sure that Dale heard that.
Good.
Thank you.
Hopefully, after we get the new line in there, knock on wood, we won't have those issues next winter.
Most of the line's in, right?
I think so, they're just doing the roadway now, right?
Yeah, our portion's always done, we just have to blacktop it yet, but the line is installed, it's at 7.5 feet, so we shouldn't have the issues previously where it was at 3.5 to 4 feet in some spots, so.
On the street above, is it down to 7 feet there?
On the very top of the hill on Third Street, it's actually about 5.5 to 6 feet. Kind of, the city cut the street down at one time, so it's not quite as deep as it should be, but it's right around, almost 6 feet at that point. And we dive it after that, so.
Dale, would you like to give us an update for the well cleaning?
Well cleaning is on schedule. We actually have number one pretty much done. We're now performing a pump down test today and tomorrow. We'll be finishing that to get all our data on how well performed after the cleaning. Friday, they'll be moving their material equipment out to collector 4 to start that one. The only glitch that we ran into with number one was we had 6 abandoned laterals in years past that had valves and spacers in there that had been leaking and allowing dirt and debris to come in. So we had them take them off and put a plate over the top so it won't leak anymore. But other than that, everything's been going according to schedule quite well, so very pleased with it.
Did we replace some valves in?
The existing valves, we did not have to replace them. The ones that are working, we replaced all the hardware connecting them to the laterals themselves, but the valves were okay shape.
Do you see any corrosion at all with those?
Corrosion's pretty much normal. It doesn't go bad. Inside the laterals, they were quite bad. Matter of fact, the gentleman that was down in there, he said when they first started with the process, the water just kind of ran out of the pipe that they sent in to do the hydroblasting. And once they got done with it, it was coming out of quite a force behind it. So there was a lot of buildup on the screens that was now removed.
Is it too early to tell if the results are very similar to what we did 2 years ago, as far as?
From what he was indicating when I talked to him this morning, I would say we're pretty much in the same ballpark as results. Like I say, we'll have their data once they get all done with cleaning. They're doing a pump test, and that will all be sent to us with an updated report
Okay, good,
on the output and capacity.
good. Any other questions or comments?
Dave, what's that water tower low level alarm, bud?
The towers are hooked into our SCADA system. If the tower goes below a certain level, it has a dial or it calls either operator or myself to say, okay, we have a low tower situation, we need to get here, find out what's going on and get making water so we don't have a boil water situation occur. So that's what that alarm is about. We actually had a water break, which threw the towers down unexpectedly over the nighttime hours, so that's what that was about.
That's what that was for.
Right,
So it was a valid alarm.
very.
Thank you.
Office manager report.
Total receivables, from last year to this year, the total receivables look like they're down about 420,000. Are you seeing less and less come in? I know we're pretty much on top of our receivables in the last few, as far as the 30, 60, and 90 days in arrears. But the current receivables look a couple $100,000 down, and then total receivables are, like I said, 420,000 or so. I don't know, I look at it as a dilution of income coming in. Is that a good way to put it? Do you feel the same way?
Sales were down a little bit
Okay.
compared to last year. So that's part of that.
But the receivables is a very good trend, right?
It is a very good trend.
And it looks like your TRIP is, what does the TRIP stand for again?
Tax refund intercept program.
Boy, that really jumped from last year to this year, another 30,000 or so?
Part of that is we're also utilizing another state program called State Debt Initiative. So that's adding, 15, 20,000, I think, to that number. But it is up. So not sure what to attribute that to. Maybe more of our accounts written off and filed tax returns this year compared to last year.
Good. Thank you.
Looks like the meeting with the landlords was very positive.
I thought it was a good meeting. I thought that there was a lot of good information exchanged both ways. and it was productive.
Okay, Director of Finance report.
You went to LWMMI, League of Wisconsin Municipalities Municipal Insurance. You know, I think I brought up that we ought to have a gentleman come and talk to us all again about that, what.
They did volunteer that service. At
Yeah,
the-
and that's, I remember 4 years ago or 3 years ago with the, you know, I think you pointed out the discretionary immunity used in defense for municipalities. And I know that's one of the things that he really drove on when he was here, and I think we all should hear it again.
I can work to set that up at a future commission meeting.
Thank you.
Sure.
Anything else for Jeff?
I just thought it was a good project for Todd here. The pumping costs, optimization. Looks like that's a big chunk of our costs, and oftentimes there's a lot of things with current technologies that are available.
Well, we're doing a lot of things with demand and pumping up in the filter plant, and we still are. I don't know about so much our pumps in the field though, so maybe we can take a look.
When they shut down, typically, it's close to the peak, they shut down the plant, which would in turn shut down the wells
Okay.
also, so.
So actually, yeah, we have a lot of that. Kurt, when he was here, worked on a program, basically looking at our demands and how the filter plant impacts those demands, and gave them some guidelines on when they need to start shutting stuff off if there's plenty of water. So we have been doing that, but we can take a look again, see where we're at. But there are some big motors, yes.
Probably a good project for a young engineer.
Sounds good.
The Information Systems report. Matt, would you like to give us an update on the progress of the GIS mapping?
The GIS mapping is in field verification mode right now, so not too much progress on that.
Good. Conservation Manager report, there is none today. Engineering Supervisor report.
The only question I have is on this, like the fluoride leak measurement and so on, is there a routine calibration set up for those detectors?
We, as far as when we detect, like, we don't actually have a detector for the fluoride, but like on the chlorine, we will have a detector for that if we have a leak. But what part of the drawing are you looking at?
I'm looking at your alarm system
Yeah.
where it says fluoride leak or water flow.
Yeah, what that is these are these variable speed pumps. They are pumping the chemicals, and internally there's a little tube there, and this roller that the drive is rolling on is how that chemical is actually being pulled into the tubing. If that tubing breaks, it gives a leak alarm to the SCADA system, and that's what you're seeing there, go from normal to alarm. Yeah, that actually is a double alarm too, because then we're also pumping water in with the fluoride so that the chemical in the tube doesn't get sticky and clog the tube. And so if once our water flow stops coming as we're pumping the fluoride, that alarm would go off that way too. Either way, it means the operator has to go downstairs and figure out what just happened. And so that's what we're getting there. So when we say leak, what we're saying is internal to the pump, the little tube just broke, and now he's gotta go down there and fix that.
If you actually have like a fluorine gas leak detection,
Yeah.
you need to be doing some calibration. Yeah.
Okay.
Good.
What's that lockout, tag out? God,
Well, for instance, let's say somebody needed to enter the retention tank. Well, you want to make sure that any dangers associated with that would be locked out. So if a person was going down into that tank, you wouldn't want to have a valve that could add any type of liquid to the tank get opened. And so the whole idea behind lockout, tagout, if like, again, the retention tank, you would have this, say, board on the wall that would have a list of procedures that had to be followed in order to safely lock out that tank before anybody entered it. And typically what you'd have alongside each one of those procedures is the actual piece of safety equipment that you would use to lock it out. So if it was a hand valve, you would have one of these plastic half-looking contraptions that actually go around the hand valve, and then you put a padlock on it. And so now nobody can turn the hand valve, but that would open that valve up. And so then on the bottom of that board is a big lock box, and so you would have a padlock for all these steps. They all go into the lock box, and then you'd have a hasp on there, so anybody that was entering the tank would put their lock on it, and so now they're safe to enter that. And so that's pretty much how a lockout tagout works. So you could have any kind of energy form, so it could be from a motor starter coming on, could be gravity, it could be anything like that.
we never, well, we called it tags. We had that on the breakers and substations like that.
Right.
Where we had a tag with a name of whoever was gonna work there.
Yep.
And that tag was also noticed to somebody else, and nobody could bother or take that tag off except the guy that was
That
there.
had the actual name on it.
Does that kind of run?
And that's pretty much exactly what this is too.
If I can go back to John's question about the chlorine analyzer or alarms, we actually have at all the wells also. And Jim Spencer currently every month he goes out and he tests all of them, including the ones here in the plant, to make sure that they are calibrated, they're working properly at the levels specified, so.
Good.
Todd, would you like to introduce Moses?
Sure, our new electrical engineer who started in April, his name is Moses Pamalu.
Yep.
Got that right? So we're very happy to have him on staff. It'll help me greatly for the engineering department.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Welcome, Moses. Any other questions or comments for Todd? General manager report.
Is that Act 274, is that the one that's causing all the,
Well, Act 274 is the landlord bill after the governor signed it, but now there's a dispute or a power play, whatever you want to call it, between the legislature and the PSC, so they're kind of putting the brakes on implementing some parts of the landlord legislation. So we'll see where it goes from here.
but that is where they're kind of pushing the limits?
Correct.
Any questions for Jim? Okay. Accounts payable.
Just one more question on this credit card area.
Sure.
Items get charged back to the proper category. Are they also then reflected in someone's budget so that an overage would be observable by, say if it gets charged back to Dale's budget, and it creates a variance, is it something that will be detectable? Is it also, are these budgeted items?
It would show up in the financial statements and the income statement against the budgeted line item. So if Dale's buying a piece of a supply or something, that does get expensed to that account and would be reflected against that budget.
So there's, that control exists as well.
Sure. Now, the majority of our credit card purchases are, operational. There's very little, if any, capital purchases that happen on credit cards. So most of it is just gonna go through our operational budget that way. So if, like in an example for Dale, if he's traveling, the budget's not gonna have a difference if he's using a credit card or pays cash for it themselves and gets reimbursed through an expense report. It's gonna hit his
Right.
budget the exact same way.
Right, okay. What the hell is blow-off? Blow-off for February, blow-off?
That's our bill from the city every month for sewer. Next, thank your buddy sitting next to you.
Okay, Tom, what is that?
It's money to Tom.
That's the money collected from a bill that goes back to the city for wastewater.
Yeah.
And of course, the other one, the storm sewer, which is, I think, extremely exciting.
Dear.
It's actually went down significantly since we did the filter plant project. I mean, it normally used to be a darn near $20,000 to $30,000 bill a month, so.
So this is actually your little black flush.
Correct,
Oh.
Okay.
right?
Typically, what used to happen, we used to spend $250,000 annually for sewer costs to get rid of stuff. Since we got rid of the lime silo and changed our process and we recover over 90% of our water, when we send them solids, our numbers have dropped off substantially.
The other one was $1,800 for tractor parts. I hope it's not for the brand new tractor.
It's for the big tractor, our big.
The big backhoe.
Right. Bought it a couple years ago.
Most of the summer inventory supplies been purchased now?
I think most of the water is in.
All the water stuff is here.
Okay. So everything is pretty much in stock right now.
What's that low-income energy assistance? Page 10.
That's the required payment everybody pays on their utility bill for low-income energy assistance, and it goes down to the state, and then they administer it through the county.
Oh, that's, okay, that's why it was, okay, that's why
That
it
goes to the
goes.
Department of Administration, with the administrators of that program.
That doesn't go to the sewer zone.
Any other questions? Okay, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
The motion's been made to adjourn. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.